you need to move. I don't want you standing near me. I don't like people standing behind me. Hey crew, welcome back to my channel. So as you all were asking for the story time, it is finally here, so stay tuned. Let's do a brief recap of what happened on this flight so we're all on the same page. So on this trip, I was the lead flight attendant, meaning I was up front and responsible basically for everything to go smoothly throughout the flight and everything. So we are working on a wide body aircraft. Wide body meaning that there are 2 aisles instead of a typical plane which is considered a narrow body aircraft where it's only 1 aisle. So the flight wasn't going to be long. It was just from Tampa to Atlanta, I believe. No, I'm sorry, Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, Florida to Atlanta, it'll be easy. We'll have no problems. So we start boarding and a gentleman approaches me and he's like, you know, this gentleman, pointing to someone who got on prior to him, seems to need some help. He was having some sort of situation going on at the gatehouse. Now that should have been my first red flag, but it wasn't. I was like, oh, thank you, sure. I have no problem assisting him. So I approached the gentleman and I'm like, hi sir, is everything okay? Can I see your boarding pass? And he sat down in a first class seat. Mind you, disclaimer, I never judge anyone by their appearance or what's going on with them to say that they don't belong in a certain cabin. I always ask for someone's boarding pass to confirm and go from there. So as I asked for his boarding pass, he started to get agitated. He was like, why'd you guys change my seat? I was supposed to be in 36 whatever and now you changed my seat. I need to know why you changed my seat. And I'm like, well sir, this isn't your seat, but I can surely show you where your seat is if you would just follow me. So as he picks up all of his stuff, because he was traveling with a lot of bags, that was another thing why it was strange that they let him on with like 4 bags, like 2 duffel bags, a book bag, and like a shopping bag, but that's beside the point. As we're walking to his seat, he's like, why'd you guys change my seat? I need to know why you changed my seat. And he's getting more agitated. So I'm like, well, there's multiple reasons why your seat can be changed, but I won't be able to exactly tell you what that reason is because I don't deal with seat assignments or reassignments. And he's like, no, there's always an answer and a reason to something. Why'd you guys change my seat? So at this point, with him getting like aggressive, I'm like, okay, this is turning in the wrong direction. So I was like, sir, if you are that concerned about your seat being changed, I would advise you to take your things and go back up to the gatehouse and speak to the gate agent, because on the plane, I have no way of answering that question for you. So he, I guess, didn't want to go back up to the gate and decided to go to his seat. So when we finally got to his seat, I noticed that he was in the exit row. And I was like, if he was having problems in the gatehouse, as the passenger made me aware of, and this interaction we had between each other, I didn't feel comfortable with him sitting in the exit row. So as I made my way up to the front of the aircraft, I called the flight attendant whose basically station or zone that she was responsible for was right there where he is, considered the mid. He was at the exit row. So I was like, hey, you know, can you keep an eye on him? Something strange is going on. And she's like, yeah, sure, no problem. We continue boarding and she calls me probably about a minute or 2 later and she's like, hey, so I'm standing here, you know, helping passengers, doing what I'm supposed to do during boarding. And he motions me over and he's like, are you gonna stay there? And she's like, I'm sorry? He's like, you need to move. I don't want you standing near me. I don't like people standing behind me. She was like, sir, I'm not behind you and this is my job. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. He's like, no, you need to move because I don't want anyone around me. And I'm like, okay, so at this point, something serious is going on with this gentleman and I'm not sure if he is fit to fly. So I made the captain aware. I sent a message on our communication system to have a supervisor meet the plane. So the supervisor comes down and I basically relay all the information I'm telling you guys, and she's like, no, I'm going to go have a talk with him, because we explained all of this to him in the gatehouse. He was told why his seat was changed. It was an aircraft swap. You're not going to have the same seat. And if he's coming to you guys in that manner, he doesn't need to fly with us. So she goes and speaks to him, and she comes back and she's like, okay, well, he's good now. I'm not taking him off the flight, but he's good. And I was like, no, it's not good, because he's still in the exit row and I don't feel comfortable with him being there. And she's like, no, he's not. Ma'am, I took him to his seat. I know he's in the exit row. So we go to the exit row and she sees him and she's like, they shouldn't have put him here. Okay, I'll fix it, basically. So we continue boarding. All of this is happening while we're boarding. Mind you, remember, we're boarding a wide body aircraft, so it's a lot of people coming on. And she comes back with his new seat. She goes and moves him, and we're still boarding. And one of the other flight attendant calls me and she's like, hey, you know, we have another problem. One of the passenger seats is broken. It's staying in the recline position. And fun fact, if you guys aren't flight attendants, especially, well, I can only speak for my airline, but that's one of the things, like a no-go item. So if you think about it, if your seat is stuck reclined and there's an emergency, you're now blocking the egress of people to get off the plane. So that's something that has to be addressed, or the passenger has to be moved. And in this situation, every single seat that could have been filled was full or filled. So it went back to the supervisor. I made her aware, you know, we have a seat that is broken, and we don't know where to move this person because every seat is full. She's like, okay, I'll be back. I'll go and try and find them another seat and we'll handle it. So I went back to the captain, made him aware, you know, we have a broken seat. He called maintenance. Maintenance came and we're like, hey, you guys, we can't fix this seat right now. You have to take the person out of the seat. So the gate agent came and was like, I found them a new seat. I'll go and speak to them and let them know why they're being moved, and then we should be able to close the door and get you guys out of here. And I'm like, thank you so much for your help. As she comes back and it's like, everything is squared away, another flight attendant comes running up and is like, wait. There's a family that has a child who is coughing like crazy, and they're under my company's age limit to require a mask, and people are uncomfortable, and she was saying she's also uncomfortable. What should we do? So the supervisor was like, okay, I'll take a mask to them while they're not required to. I'll explain to them, what's going on in the world right now. People are uncomfortable with anything that seems like flu-like symptoms, and they have a reason to be. So she speaks to them. They said they'll try their best to keep the mask on the child, and she's like, okay, we're good to close the door. As I'm about to say all of the things that I need to say to give them the okay to close the door, that same flight attendant runs back up and is like, wait, don't close the door. There's a family that's sitting behind them that has a newborn child, and they're not comfortable sitting here because that child is still coughing very badly. And the gate agent's like, okay, well, at this point, someone has to come off the plane because we don't have any more seats. I can't move anyone, and especially a whole family, to other seats. So she was like, well, let me go and speak to them and see what happens. So she goes and speaks to them. She was able to swap some people around, or I think one of the parents to hold the child and move to another seat. So she's like, okay, now are we good to close the door? So I'm like, thank you so much for your help. Yes, the cabin is secure, which is her signal that they can close the door. So we closed the door, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that boarding was trying for sure. And then the captain comes on and is like,
ladies and gentlemen, we have a maintenance problem with one of the cargo doors, and we don't know when it's going to be fixed.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, help me please. Like, boarding wasn't enough. Now we have a maintenance delay. So everyone now is getting up out their seats. They want to ask about their connection. One lady's like, I'm going to Turkey. I have 2 connections. I have to make that flight. Are we going to get it on time? And I'm like, ma'am, I don't know. I found that information out that you just heard at the same time as you. I cannot tell you how long it's going to take because I don't know. As we're de-escalating that situation, a guy gets up and he's like, hey, is that thing gone? And I'm like, I'm sorry? What are you referring to? And he's like, the thing that like brings you onto the plane. I was like, the jet bridge? And he's like, yeah, is it gone? I was like, sir, the door is closed. We're getting ready to leave. Or we were getting ready to leave. He's like, so I can't go back into the airport and buy food? I'm hungry. I was like, no, you can go to your seat because the door is closed and you shouldn't be up at this time. He's like, so do you have anything for me to eat? Because I'm hungry. I was in disbelief of the whole conversation, so I kind of just stood there and stared for a minute. And I was like, we serve snacks in the air, but we do not do any type of service on the ground. So once we get up in the air, I'll be more than happy to bring you a snack. But once again, I do need you to go back to your seat. So not too long after that, the captain was like, you know, everything is squared away. We're good to go. Is the cabin ready for takeoff? So we took off. The flight was fine for the most part. We landed, everyone deplaned, and that was it. That was a bizarre experience. It was, I wouldn't consider a stressful experience because I don't tend to stress, especially at work. I can't let that stuff get to me, but it was trying for sure. So I want you guys to comment down below, what is the craziest thing that has happened to you on a flight? If you are a flight attendant, if you work in the airline industry as a passenger, just let me know what's happened to you on a flight that you thought like, am I being punked? Like, is this real right now? Yes. So thank you guys so much for watching this story time, and I will see you in our next video. Bye.